11 o'clock in Peckham Park. Come and celebrate William and Kate's big day. I don't know, hesitated Mr. Patel, looking at the flyer. There's bound to be trouble. It will be a great day to be English, said James, and there will be sausages. James had eaten many sausages in the past month. He still didn't know much about the English, but he knew that they sure loved sausages. Of course I'm proud to be English, said Mr. Patel. My ancestors fought with the Rani of Jhansi in the Indian Mutiny. Before he left Ohio, James had read all 3 volumes of Simon Sharma's History of Britain. Somehow it was proving less helpful than he had anticipated. The problem was that everyone in this small island seemed to remember a different history than the one that he had read about. Said James non-committally. Wasn't the Rani rebelling against colonial rule? And didn't she lose? Of course, replied Mr. Patel. What could be more English than to fight on the losing team? I see, said James, although he didn't. The street party had been his father's idea. James Sr. was a serious Anglophile who had never had a passport, but he was delighted when James had said that he was going to London. James himself hadn't been so sure. It was the first time that he had ever left America, and he found himself missing the familiar things. He called home every Sunday. A royal wedding? Street parties? Like when Princess Di married that guy with the ears, enthused James Sr. You gotta go! Well, there don't seem to be any on around here. Maybe there'll be one in Trafalgar Square. No, you gotta keep it local. You organise one for your street, James, that's how. I don't know, said James. It seems kind of presumptuous. After all, he was only an exchange student. 2 years into his degree at the University of Ohio, a year abroad studying fine art at Goldsmiths had seemed like a great escape. In his spare time, James painted landscapes, mostly pale blue skies over endless flat fields. Sometimes he painted a tiny cow, but he never got the faces quite right. James loved Turner, but he couldn't paint like him. England was Turner's country. He felt like he owed the English. He made up some flyers and walked through Peckham, trying to hand them out. On Lordship Lane, a skinhead struggling with a pit bull took a flyer. The skinhead had an upside-down Union Jack tattooed on his neck. All of them royals, said the skinhead, salt of the earth, and sausages. Mugabe here loves sausages. Sure, said James, moving away quickly from the excited dog, straining against his leash. There's something for everyone. In Tesco's, the cashier who scanned his pot noodles shook his head. This be some Babylon ting, man, not for your brethren. James tried not to stare at the cashier's head, where ghostly pale scalp showed up between tight cornrows. His name tag read, Hi, I'm Sebastian Fortescue Smythe. Oh, come if you can, Sebastian. How often does a prince get married? You get another chance if this dude be anything like his dada, replied Sebastian. In college the next day, James waited until the end of the lecture. Most of the other students ignored him. In the front row, a girl with a large plastic bone through her nose was texting, stabbing the keys as if they were to blame for whatever had happened to her face. James wasn't sure what to make of his fellow students. They didn't have people like this back in Ohio. The top students in his class were a Russian woman who electroplated dead cats into positions from the Kama Sutra, and an old Etonian who spray-painted, "This world is shit!" onto billboards with human excrement, the L in brackets. The students had clapped the cat bronzer, and they cheered the shit guy. When James had presented his own work, his best landscape with 2 cows, no one had said a word. I have an announcement. Now they were all looking at him. Even the girl with the nose bone. He held up a flyer. It's a party because William and Kate are getting married. Everybody's invited. No one moved. Is it going to be like, an event? Asked the shit guy. In the sense of an actual happening. Not really, said James, but it's our chance to celebrate. Some muttering, a groan or two. There will be sausages. The students started to leave. James thrust a flyer at the nosebone girl, holding it out until she took it. Please come, it'll be great. She has very blue eyes, he thought. Aquamarine, like a frozen ocean. Maybe. Then she was gone. He pasted the rest of the flyers up around college. Soon he noticed graffiti starting to appear on his flyers. Kate is a slag. Royal family equals inbred scum. William, call me before you do something crazy. We'll talk. Love always, Peter. He read all the graffiti carefully, but none of it seemed helpful. Mr. Patel told James not to worry and lent him a gas barbecue. You will need a permit to use it in the park, though. At the town hall, a clerk obscured by a wire grill stamped the forms. Preparation of foodstuffs for human consumption, £10. Permit for open fire, £50. And I'll need a credit card for the police bond. What police bond? Why on earth would I need the police? Oh, don't make the rules, mate. The Prevention of Terrorism, Raves and Other Antisocial Behaviour Act 2010 does. James went to Tesco to buy sausages and buns. He asked Sebastian what the English drank. Pimm's, of course. The taste of an English summer. James was already over budget and he could only afford 2 bottles. He found plastic cups and plates. The plates had pictures of William and Kate. Their pink-cheeked faces were friendly but bovine. They didn't look like anyone he'd ever seen in London. The day before the wedding, he rummaged through the pound shop. He bought 20 metres of bunting in red, white and blue. The only balloons they had left were bright green. Irish it up a bit, said the assistant. It's only fair, really. James brought a string of plastic Union Jacks to make up for it. That night, he couldn't sleep. Early the next morning, he walked over to the park. The sky was grey and the grass was damp, but the day seemed full of possibilities. He lugged his kitchen table across the road and set up his portable radio. He bought all 5 chairs from his flat. If people wanted somewhere to sit, they'd just have to bring their own. James imagined his neighbours streaming out of their houses, bearing their chairs high while the aroma of grilling meat wafted all around. It took him hours to set up, stringing the bunting between the trees and blowing up the balloons. A couple of passing joggers looked curious, but didn't stop. He hummed as he worked, wishing that he knew the words to God Save the Queen past the first line. At 10 o'clock, a police car pulled up, and an enormous policeman got out. Good morning, sir. I'm D.S. Osundo. Welcome to the celebrations, said James. Not here to celebrate, unfortunately, sir. More of a watching brief for this demo of yours. Well, it's not a protest, officer, James laughed. It's for the royal wedding, so we can all show how proud we are to be English. Osundo consulted a clipboard. Says demonstration down here, sir. How many are we expecting? James chuckled. Well, you'll know that better than I will, officer. 50? 100? How many loyal English subjects do we have round here? Hard to say, said Osundo. You've got your Croatia versus Tunisia match on Sky this afternoon. The radio started to play wedding marches. In his heart, James knew that the nosebone girl was sitting on a bus, getting closer. He turned up the radio and fired up the burners on the gas stove. Soon, sausages sizzled and popped. 20 buns lay split and buttered, with another 20 in reserve. He set up plastic cups and the 2 bottles of Pimm's. The table looked a bit bare. Maybe people would bring their own salads and desserts, James thought. He should have put that on the flyer. He imagined sherry trifle, jam, roly-poly, even spotted dick, or whatever that was. He looked around the small park. The trees were beginning to show spring leaves. Soon everybody would arrive. He hoped that he wouldn't run out of food. At 11 o'clock, a young Vietnamese couple with a baby hurried by. They stopped momentarily, but then the baby started to cry. When James offered them a sausage, they examined it carefully and smiled before they shook their heads. Soon afterwards, 2 men in dirty overcoats turned up. One wore a fur trapper's hat. Sausages, said Fur Hat, helping himself. But what's the occasion? Oh, come on, it's the royal wedding, said James. Haven't you heard? No, congratulations, said the other. His mouth was so full he was having difficulty speaking. Who's the lucky lady? It's not me, said William and Kate. Said James, it's William and Kate. Oh, cheers then, Bill, said Fur Hat, drinking from one of the bottles of Pimm's. Where's this Kate bird? Left you already? The other man laughed so hard that crumbs sprayed across the table. Then the pair went quiet, stuffing sausages into their mouths and passing the Pimm's bottle back and forth. James hid the other bottle under his jacket. Well, this is nice, said James, but he was interrupted by a police siren. When the two men saw Asundo getting out of his car, they grabbed handfuls of sausages and ran across the park. Shiftless bastards, said Asundo. They're my only guests, said James glumly. He watched the two figures disappearing into the trees. Still, bastards, said Asundo, helping himself to a sausage. It started to drizzle, and the wind grew gusty. Asundo disconnected the gas burner. Health and safety, said Asundo when James protested. You'd better turn that radio off. Don't you want to know how the wedding is going? Not really, said Asundo. They're all much the same. But this one is special, Asundo snorted. You sound like my wife. Does she like weddings? She likes them enough to leave me and marry someone else. He took another sausage and went back to his car. James decided to leave the radio on and risk electrocution. People would want to hear the commentary, even if it was hard to hear over the sound of the wind. He waited for a while, but no one else appeared. James decided to persist a little longer, just in case the girl with the bone through her nose was late. The radio started to crackle. An update on that wedding coming up, right after these messages. James ate a sausage while he listened to advertisements for Anchor butter and Toyota cars. The meat was lukewarm and greasy. He wondered whether he had cooked the sausages properly. Were they truly meant to taste like this? He thought he saw Mr. Patel walking along the far edge of the park, but he couldn't be sure. The Union Jacks flapped in the wind, and he noticed that he had hung them upside down. When the radio dissolved into static, he turned it off. It began to rain in earnest. A small lake formed on the grill, and the sausages started to float. James watched Asundo drive away. Perhaps William and Kate were already man and wife. He imagined the two of them on honeymoon, lying together in a hotel bed, as stiff and waxy as mannequins. In Ohio, the cows were waking up to another day of eating grass. James felt like he didn't care if he never ate another sausage in his life. But he packed the remaining food into a box and put it under the table. Then he climbed under the table too. He couldn't imagine that Turner had ever had a day like this. James decided to become a Republican. He took the Pimm's from his jacket and drank, watching the bunting disintegrating under the force of the rain. Pimm's tasted horrible, like peanut butter and jelly when you eat all the peanut butter first. He took another swig and almost dropped the bottle when someone knocked on the table. Hello? Is it too late? James stuck his head out into the rain. It was the girl with the bone through her nose. I bought you something. She dropped a packet into his lap. He picked it up to read the label. Marks and Spencer limited edition William and Kate commemorative sausages. Thanks a lot, said James. I think I finally get what the English are all about. Would you like to drink a toast? He held up the bottle and wished William and Kate all the happiness in the world.